My apologies for the late start tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to go live here shortly with everything you need to know about what's going on at the NFL Scouting Combine, everything you need to know about how you can draft a winner in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball and Never Too Early Best Ball Superflex Tournament, as well as the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. Tonight, we have a winner of 23 FFPC League Championships coming on tonight, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to miss it. We're going to have Ferrell Elliott. We're going to have myself coming on tonight. It is going to be a fantastic show. I'm Eric Balkman, your slightly above average host. Ferrell Elliott is going to join us here shortly. Stick around. Your high stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics tuning in from the United States and around the world. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship live on the FFPC YouTube social channels as well as around the world. Whether you're streaming, downloading, podcasting, we appreciate you listening and watching. Tonight, I want to tell you that Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, and I are going to go hard on everything you need to know with the FFPC Players Championship Big Gorilla Tournament, the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, and everything going on with the Dynasty Fantasy Football Players Championship Orphans with myffpc.com. It's going to be a great show tonight. We'll have stuff going on from the Combine. Ferrell was just fresh off the NFL Combine. We'll talk about what he learned about the rookies there, and we'll talk about everything we need to know about managing your dynasty teams to the high that you need to get them to win not only one but multiple leagues in the FFPC Players Championship at myffpc.com. Jeff Newton, who has won 23 FFPC league titles, is going to join us tonight to talk about his dynasty management philosophy, which has been done to some critical acclaim. We'll talk about with him shortly. Now, I want to remind you, if you are looking for action in the FFPC, check out the Never Too Early Best Ball and Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournaments going on at myffpc.com. The Never Too Early Best Ball tournament features a $40,000 grand prize. That's up $15,000 from the previous year for a $125 entry fee. That is the same from the previous year. You can also win a $10,000 grand prize in the FFPC Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. That is only a $35 entry fee. Those tournaments are going on right now. They will go all the way until April 24th, which is the start of the the start of the NFL draft. So once the NFL draft starts, you will no longer be able to draft in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments at myffpc.com. Drafts are available right now, 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks. And while you're there, pick up a Dynasty Orphan over at myffpc.com. Those leagues are normally between $77 and $5,000. Those entry fees have been lowered for the FFPC Dynasty Leagues this year. You can pick them up for as little as $1 over at myffpc.com/dynasty. 1,800 plus leagues over the last 15 years, and none have ever folded in 15 plus years. That's a decade and a half. Not one Dynasty League has ever folded. So if you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football and you don't want to have to worry about, is this league going to fold or not? You don't have to worry about it. myffpc.com is your home for it right now. Check it out. And while you're there, the Big Gorilla Tournament is going on. $1 million grand prize, a $350 entry fee, 3 teams for $1,000. Drafts are already off and running, both live and slow, right now at myffpc.com. You want to join now, you will get in on the early Rampage tournament. That means $350 is going to buy you not one, but 2 entry fees to 2 different tournaments, the Early Rampage Tournament and the Big Gorilla Tournament. You will be eligible for a $10,000 grand prize and a $1 million grand prize. The 7 Bananas promotion is also going on right now. If you get that 7 pick and 2 consecutive drafts, which multiple teams already have so far this year, you will get a free $125 FFPC Best Ball Tournament entry. If you get it 3 times in a row, you will get a free main event entry. If you get it 4 times in a row, you will get a free $10,000 High Society League entry this year. And if you get the 7 pick in the Big Gorilla Tournament 5 times in a row, we are giving you an all expense paid trip on a jungle safari. That's right. You will get a jungle safari if you get that 7 pick 5 times in a row in the Big Gorilla Tournament. Or if you don't want to take the jungle safari, that's okay. We will give you $50,000 cash. myffpc.com, myffpc.com is where to go. Remember to like that video, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be coming up this coming Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. More on that coming up later on in the show. I have rambled on long enough. Let's bring in the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. He is the head of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. He is the crusher of, I shouldn't say crusher. He is the builder of all dreams in the NFL, as he is a player agent and just fresh off his appearance at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine, Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, welcome back from Indianapolis. Let me ask you this. How was the shrimp cocktail? How was the steak at St. Elmo's now that you are back in Louisville, Kentucky?
I did not make it to St. Elmo's this year.
Because you're working too hard. I told you this for years. You need to take a break, go to St. Elmo's, have a nice steak. You're working too hard. You're crushing too much there.
I'm crushing the dreams of the other agents when I'm out working. They're all sitting over. Everything about it was fantastic. The gorilla at the combine is NIL. I had a meeting this morning. I attended, hosted by a wonderful guy named Neil Stratton, who does a great job of bringing the industry together for his private meetings. And over 30 NIL general managers from colleges across the country were there, and it was very enlightening. And that is the gorilla as far as the combine is concerned. Ask more directed questions, and I'll give you some answers.
Neil Stratton can be followed. Neil Stratton, by the way, from Houston, Texas, can be followed on the X at Inside the League. He is the guy who is going to be running succeedinfootball.com. And you had a front row seat for this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ferrell, but was this like the actual combine? Did you also get an upgrade in understanding the NIL and everything going on in college football equally as you are understanding, as you already have a well-handled situation on it with pro football? Was this kind of like on the same level, college and pro?
Yeah, it's continuing, and we're all figuring it out at the same time, from coaches, from general managers. The shift is that many general managers, as talent evaluators and people that can manage a salary cap, are coming from professional football and moving into the college ranks to run the NIL. And they're all various ages, and they're all being very well compensated, which makes it quite feasible for them to wish to leave scouting in the NFL or some other aspect of coaching and come in and contribute. And it's pretty fascinating, and it's going to how it affects fantasy football, because that's what this show is about. We're going to know more about the players. We're going to be able to understand an early NIL valuation of college players, another stat besides their name, to discuss what they're going to do when we get to the NFL. And so all of us that like to play fantasy football can now begin to project rookie values long before they become available to us in the NFL. And we're going to continue to see a great deal of transfer, not transfer for transfer's sake, but transfer because of the economics involved. And it's a very exciting time in the football world.
What can you tell me about because obviously, like a lot of us a lot of people who are playing Dynasty, whether in the KFFSC, the FFPC, are tuning in tonight to find out more about Dynasty fantasy football. What can you tell us about not only the landscape with college football with the NIL right now, but how that's affecting pro football? And I'll bring you to this. There are plenty of players who are sticking around in college football right now because of the landfall of cash that they are getting as opposed to what they could get in the NFL. Is this something we need to be concerned about? There is something to be said for people who are scouting players, at the Devy level, and then obviously at the college football level, who are excited about Dynasty fantasy football, rookie drafts coming up and everything. How is this affecting us who do not follow college football, do not follow high school football, but follow professional football, especially at a Dynasty level? How is the NIL? How is everything that you have learned this past weekend and previous to this affecting players who are not only drafting in redraft leagues, but Dynasty leagues as well?
Well, I think it's time to start following college football because we can now understand it in the terms that we're used to as fantasy players, and we can deal with it in the terms that we're used to as studying and following the money in the NFL, because it's beginning to look more like that. No players, the COVID is finally in the background. It's finally so far back that the age, while there is not an age limitation on players, we're going to see more 4 and 5 and done, and more younger players coming in the league. And I think I think that is reflected in the guys that are working at the combine and the guys that are going to be in the draft this year. One of the things, Balky, that I've had commentary from friends, our good friend Richard Ross sent me a text tonight talking about how players that don't perform at the combine, he questions their competitiveness, and that's understandable because, I ran into a trainer today that asked me to call some agents that were new in the business and tell them that their client, his client that he's been training and their client that they represent him must run at the combine because the player wants to run and the agent doesn't want him to because the agent's nervous that he hasn't healed from his injury from college ball. And I met that kid, and there's no way that's going to keep him out from running at the combine. He would run in the hallway on the way to. But if you are a college football fan, you want your players to show up and play in the bowl game. There was one team last year, it might have been San Jose, but I'm not real sure who it was. They had to cancel their involvement in a bowl game because so many players had entered the portal. They didn't have enough players to play in the bowl game. Then we want the tournament. We want a true national championship in college football, and you'll have elongated seasons there. So you take a switch now and you look at the different players who are at the top of their game amongst the top players in the league. And here we are in late February. Well, they played a long college season. They're not necessarily advanced in their training. Their body hasn't recovered from the season. So it's understandable how they figure that their best effort could come later at the combine or at the pro day, because the training that they're having personally is just beginning to take effect. They would go and have a week of training and make gradual steps, but now that has sort of kicked in. And so in one day's training, they're advancing like it was for an entire week. And I'll finish up by just saying that there's an element that if you throw at your pro day or if you work at your pro day, you're going to be assisting your teammates that are there. If you're a top player and you haven't worked yet, there's a chance that more attentive and more depth, every team will have representation, but attentive guys in the coaching staff and more depth from certain teams might show up at your pro day, which helps all the guys that you've been with for 4 years. So it doesn't, let's let's don't set a player aside because he doesn't throw at the pro day. He's got personal reasons to do it. And he might be doing a lot of other things that you like as a football fan.
I think the thing to understand here is, I'll put this out there. Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points just did a podcast with Theo Greminger, and he pointed out all the things that we need to be paying attention to and the things we should ignore as far as the combine goes. To your point, Ferrell, and check that out anywhere you get podcasts. To your point, Ferrell, I think that if I was in a situation as a quarterback, a receiver, a running back, tight end, whatever, I am going to do what is going to get me drafted highest, because what is going to get me drafted highest in the NFL draft is going to pay me the most. So if that's not working out, I'm not going to work out.
That's a good point. And each of that is determined individually. Like, I wanted to be at the combine and I wanted to get the most from the meetings today. So, Balky, as you know, I am not a morning person, but I was up this morning at 4 a.m. So if I say anything that's a bit off-putting to anyone, I apologize, because this has been a hell of a long day. That's all I'm saying.
I will say this: I had a 6:45 a.m. doctor's appointment today, so you and I are in a bad spot right now.
I need a 6:45 a.m. doctor's appointment after today.
All right, so here's what I want to do. We have Jeff Newton, the 23-time FFPC champion, hanging out in the green room. I have ordered my intern to put out extra bacon wrapped shrimp for him, because we will get to him in a couple of minutes. There's two things I want to bring up tonight, Ferrell, before we get into the actual show itself.
Guys from Porky's will be proud that you got the bacon wrapped.
Oh yeah, Porky's, by the way. Scott Christian, here we go.
Nothing better than seafood and pork. Yeah.
Well, no question. And anytime I have an opportunity to bring up Oinker on the show, I'm going to do that. So, this is going to be terrible. It's Christian, and who's the other one?
Oh, then James Hicks. He just put a bunch of
James Hicks, who gave me this, and I feel bad for James Hicks because I know
you've been up since 6:45. How in the hell you probably don't know my name? You introduced me as a crusher of dreams a few minutes ago. We're not going to be right about everything during the show.
Exactly. So glad to be joined by Ferrell Edwards tonight on the show. Fantastic stuff. No, Scott Christian and James Hicks birthing Oinker that we are bringing on the show tonight. So two things I want to bring up. Number one, the big news of the night: Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
He's finalizing a deal to remain with the Rams for this upcoming season. According to Ian Rappaport, the T's just have to be crossed. The I's just have to be dotted. We were talking about Stafford potentially going to the Giants, Stafford potentially going to the Raiders. Obviously, he was skiing with Tom Brady in Montana this past week.
Who does?
We know he's going to be back with Los Angeles, Ferrell. I think the biggest thing I take away from this, I'm comfy cozy drafting Matthew Stafford as my number 2 quarterback in never too early best ball tournaments with the FFPC. And Puka Nacua is locked and loaded as a first-round pick this year. And that's my biggest takeaways from the Stafford, the reported Stafford deal with the Rams. That's going to keep him around not only for 2025, which is all I care about with Stafford, because they kind of want to go week to week with him, or year to year with him right now. That's all I care about with him right now. I feel really good about Stafford and Nacua in 2025.
Yeah, I do too. We got to figure out how to use Stafford in this upcoming draft, and if you're going to get him as a second-round draft pick, and $279 million is the new salary cap. I don't expect a jump like that next year. And the reason I don't is because I've been told by people that really know not to expect a jump next year. But a year-to-year thing, one of the things I learned today is we might get, the collective bargaining agreement the current one does not expire until 2030. We might get there sooner. There's so many introduction of revenue streams in the NFL that the owners may actually want to join the players union and getting a new deal out on the table. So, and that might include, and this is big news for fantasy football, and the players are dead set against it as of today. But part of that negotiation might be another regular season football game. So we'll see.
We will see. I want to bring this up, and my apologies again, Jeff. Gorge yourself on that bacon wrap shrimp, because we will get to you shortly.
I think we're going to go over tonight, Balky.
It's leaning that way. Yeah. Tom Smith, our mutual friend, Tom Smith, who I am playing in week 1 of the KFFSC, one of the KFFSC drafts that I've already drafted, sent me a Facebook message tonight about Corbin Smith, who covers the Seattle Seahawks for Emerald Spectrum, Locked on Seahawks, Fox 13 Seattle.
Ooh, that's a lot of work.
He does a lot. He's got 24,000 plus followers on X, so I'll bring this up. He reported that the Packers have been open to the idea of moving their first-round pick in exchange for DK Metcalf, because as Peter Bukowski, who is a normal weekly guest on my terrestrial radio show here in Northeast Wisconsin, they believe they can get similar compensation back for Jair Alexander, the cornerback, the former All-Pro cornerback for the Packers, in a separate deal. So there's a lot going on. According to Corbin Smith, there is a deal on the table right now that the Packers have issued for Seattle that will send one of the Packers draft picks and one of the Packers young receivers to Seattle in exchange for DK Metcalf coming to Green Bay. I don't like to dwell on this type of stuff. I don't like to put a spotlight on this type of stuff. But when Tom Smith, KFFSC celebrity, FFPC legend, when he brings this up, I feel like I have to bring this up. This does not sound like Green Bay. This does not feel like the Packers, but it's out there right now, Ferrell. If you are drafting in the KFFSC right now, if you are drafting in the FFPC right now, how do you handle the Packers receivers? More importantly, how do you handle DK Metcalf, knowing that it's reported that he could be heading to the Packers from Seattle?
I've always wanted DK Metcalf to have a new playground. I think that would be wonderful. Who knows? It's just, does it move? Where's he going? Where's Darren? Let us know that he's going right now, because there's room, I think, to move him up on speculation. And I think there's a lot of any landing space outside of Seattle might be an improved landing space for him. Not that things aren't necessarily correct in Seattle, but I think this player, like some of the other receivers at Diggs, and it could just use a new scenery.
Right now, DK Metcalf is drafted as wide receiver 24. So he's at the end of the wide receiver twos. That he is going at the 504, Ferrell, right now in the FFPC Big Gorilla, fantasymojo.com, at Fantasy Mojo on the X, Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros vs. Joes for the FFPC. Anytime we cite ADP, it is according to Fantasy Mojo. Metcalf at the 504 right now, that is right behind Devontae Adams and Teteroa McMillan, right ahead of Chris Olave and Zay Flowers. Tom Smith also chiming in on YouTube. Would DK Metcalf be the wide receiver one on Green Bay if he's traded to them? 100% unequivocally, yes, he would. Now, what does that mean in Green Bay? It means something different for the Packers. Though the wide receiver one there maybe does not drive home what the wide receiver one would be for the New York Jets, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, for the Las Vegas Raiders, for the Houston Texans. It's a little bit different here, but I can unequivocally say if DK Metcalf is traded from Seattle to Green Bay, which I don't know how likely it is, and I still bet that this is not going to happen more than it would. But if it did happen, yes, he would go up in ADP. He would be the de facto number one receiver in Green Bay, which is what people are looking for right now.
True. You know what everybody in Green Bay is looking for.
They want the number one receiver, Ferrell. Josh Jacobs wants the number one receiver. Jordan Love wants the number one receiver. I am of the opinion that they can still cobble it together in the regular season. Once it gets to the postseason, you need that third down guy. You need that.
Derek points out something very interesting as well.
Who? I'm sorry, who?
a former guest of the show, Derek Greer. DEG.
Did he post it? I didn't. Is this Derek Greer? Oh, there he is, right there.
Yeah, that's him.
He is a run first team. Is the Packers, and I would probably. Here's the thing, and this is why I don't like to go crazy on these Packers receivers. When you consider the fact that the Packers kind of took the ball out of Jordan Love's hands for the majority of the 2024 season and had Josh Jacobs have a banner season this past year and are hoping for another banner season this year. They still have Marshawn Lloyd. Everybody forgets about Marshawn Lloyd. They have Emmanuel Wilson. They have Chris Brooks. They have Marshawn Lloyd. This could be another big year where Ferrell, you and I are sitting here 1 year from now saying, God, Jordan Love, another step back. But really it was the fact that the Packers had a big time running game that fueled them this season. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind when we consider the Packers could add another receiver. But that wide receiver one could be very, very, very different than the wide receiver one we could see in a lot of other teams this season.
I think all of us need to keep in mind when you start talking about the Green Bay Packers that we should just listen, because Balky, you're there with your terrestrial radio and you're home there somewhere in Wisconsin. Your old Wisconsin home. Yeah. My
thought is this. If they stay at status quo right now, you want to avoid pass catchers for Green Bay. If they don't, if they go out and grab DK Metcalf, you probably need to bump up DK Metcalf.
Let's bump him up a little bit. Let's go ahead and draft him in the 4th round, get him on the team, see what happens.
Let's talk about a guy who has won a ton of FFPC leagues over the last half decade. He is a 23-time league winner. He is a guy that has a lot of interesting thoughts on how he has been able to take his dynasty teams from not much in year 1 to year 2, year 3, year 4, where he is absolutely crushing it. 23 league titles to his name. I want to welcome him on tonight, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Jeff Newton, and he joins Ferrell and I on the HSFF Hour tonight. Jeff, good evening. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, man.
Yeah, Balky, Ferrell, thank you for the invite. I'm really excited to be here.
I am excited to have you as well. And the first thing, and we always like to get this question out of the way. When you're not winning all these FFPC leagues, dynasty and redraft, by the way, I should point that out too. What are you doing for a living when you're not dominating the FFPC?
I retired 2.5 years ago from a 30-year career in healthcare, and I still have real estate. I've been doing real estate for about 16 years, and I still have rental properties, but a lot of the crazy stuff I was doing with flip funding and things like that, I've kind of winded that part down. But I would say my career work really had a lot of strategy, a lot of negotiation, a lot of having to think big picture. And this is a great outlet, going into especially Dynasty. I really enjoy it.
So refresh my memory, Jeff, you started like redraft leagues in the FFPC, and then you were like, oh, let me try this Dynasty aspect out, right?
Yeah, 2014 was my first year in FFPC. And I played till 17, and then the laws changed. And for 4 years, Missouri didn't allow me to play at all. And I came back. I've been pretty active with the Players Championship. Had some success there. Had some good finishes, some league wins, etc. But then in 22, picked up 3 teams in Dynasty, and I always get through the Super Bowl, and then I just am like skin crawling until August when we start like trying to prep for the drafts, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'd heard about Dynasty. I've heard about, individual defensive player and et cetera. But I always thought, well, it's kind of like baseball. I don't know if I really want to go there, right? I mean, baseball seems to me, I played it 1 year. It was a little more than I could really get into.
Yeah.
But I tried Dynasty 3 leagues. And I know you probably asked me about some of this as we go along, but it ramped up fairly quickly. I'm getting better, but I want to say I'm in my 4th year and I'm still making a lot of mistakes. And I'm happy to share what I've learned and where I'm improving, but I'm still finding that I've got a lot of room to grow.
It's fantastic. I mean, like, because we don't always get players like you on the program. Initially, when you were thinking about moving over from redraft to dynasty. What was it that attracted you to the aspect of dynasty fantasy football? Was it, pretty much owning all these guys for the entirety of their careers until you traded them or cut them or cut them or anything like that? We cutted them. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. What was it about dynasty? Because you went hard on this, well, I shouldn't say you went hard. You went a little bit light that first year, but ever since your first year of dynasty, you've gone hard, man.
Gone hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I really I caught the fever for sure. The year-round aspect is great. I think the other thing is, even though I had success in the Players Championship, when the season ended, you're done. Like, that team's gone. Yeah. You're starting fresh. I love the idea of trying to take a 20-man roster, win that year, but also always with an eye on how do I keep this going. Like, I like that idea that you can build a winner that can endure and hopefully run it back. And then there's that mix, right? I mean, do you want a lot of veterans? Do you want young? Do you want a mix? How do you make the best use of that full 20-man roster? And I'll tell you also, I've been very impressed with the owners. The types of engagement I get in these leagues. Obviously, with Fantasy Pros Players Championship, there's no trading. With this, there's so much engagement around, trade block or people, sending offers and trying to figure out what I'm looking for and see what they might, be looking to send me and, see if there's a match. I find most of the owners are very engaging and very enjoyable to try to work with. There's a few that, just send you goofy offers and you get a little frustrated, but
that's true of any league. That's true of any league, right?
I mean, those few are the guys that create orphans for the rest of us to adopt. I mean, they cut and run. They're not there to build a champion. I'm impressed. 23 championships. I finally fell into the dynasty world. I did it mostly through orphans. Some through startups. What is your favorite way to acquire a dynasty team? And do you have a certain code, perhaps, that you might live by? You talk about being a realtor and playing the waiting game and hitting it at the right time and a real estate investor. I think you're bringing a lot of that element to this dynasty world. And just tell us a little bit about that. But let's start with where you built them. Do you like building them through the draft, or do you like going in and adopting a lonesome, bedraggled orphan team?
I think the answer is yes.
He likes redhead blondes and most brunettes. I like it.
I had 7 first places in 5 seconds in 2024, and 6 of the 12 teams that finished first or second were orphans. 3 of them were startups, and 3 of them were ongoing leagues. So I found the orphans were great. I've heard you guys on your recent shows talking about, hey, sometimes you can buy an orphan and they're ready to go. I found that some of these orphans, you never know the background of why someone lets a team go, but you look at these teams and like, I don't think I need to do a lot with this team to make this team competitive.
I know exactly why those teams, why guys let those teams go. They cannot stand prosperity. They're sitting there.
There were some teams that this looked great. And so I like all of that, but I will tell you, frankly, going from 3 teams to 14 to 30, I may have a problem.
No, you don't.
That's a little bit quick. But I think I don't know if I can go more than 30 and do it right.
And Jim, where is home? Where is home from you for you?
What's that?
Where's your home?
I'm in St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis. It's a good Midwesterner. You need to. Okay, that's very good.
So let me ask you something, Jeff. When we talk about dynasty fantasy football, one of the things, and we exchanged some emails prior to this podcast tonight, you have often tried to break the code in dynasty, for lack of a better term. What does break the code mean to you? Can you explain that to the viewers, to the listeners tonight?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I guess it's all trying to get better and smarter and more successful, because I'm in year 3 and I had no success first year. I was better year 2. I had a pretty good year last year. but I think it's all because I've got a process in place, which I'll be happy to share. You can stop me at any time if you think we're losing listeners because I'm getting too deep in like geeky stuff, right? But I'll go there. You guys stop me if I'm creating a problem for your show.
Well,
but
hold on. Let's listen. I'm not going to stop you because we're bored already. But I want to get I want to get the viewers and the listeners in tune on this. And you kind of alluded to this earlier. 3 dynasty teams for you in 2022.
Right.
You upped that the following year to 14. And then this past year, you ran 30 dynasty teams. Right. The first year playing dynasty in the FFPC, you didn't win anything, right?
Right.
The second year, 77% of your entry fees back into your account. And then the third year, 158% of your league fees went right back into your FFPC players account. Last year, 7 first place teams, 5 second place finishes out of 30 teams. So you're either finishing first or second this past year in 12 out of your 30 leagues. So can you tell us a little bit about the system that you have employed, what intrigues you about Dynasty Fantasy Football? And honestly, what has you coming back for more is obviously your success rate, but tell us a little bit about what you've done to make sure that these teams don't just stay stagnant as bottom feeders, but are contenders every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do that's probably a little different from some is I barely look at the app other than to pick up free agents on Wednesday night. So between Tuesday morning and let's call it Friday afternoon, I'm not in there setting lineups because to me, that's an inefficient use of time. I think Tuesday night is all about trying to get an idea who you want from waiver perspective. Mm-hmm. And then also, I know I shared this with you, Balky, on an email, the bid group process within FFPC where you can do a global bid group.
Right.
It's really great for teams like myself or guys like myself that have a lot of teams, because I might miss if someone's dropped. That's a player that I wouldn't expect to be available. But the way that bid group works, it's showing you who's available in all 30 leagues. And so you can sort it 1 to 30. So if a player is only available in 1 league out of 30, it's going to show me. And if someone's only available in 1 league out of 30, that's probably someone that I might want to take note of because there's a reason that 29 teams own that player. Mm-hmm. So I can look at who got dropped, like a Sinnott or a Garendo or a Tracy or a McMillan, which I found all those guys through this process throughout the year. And
on your waiver wire in your dynasty leagues. You got
correct. And across these leagues, wasn't available in every league, obviously, but across those 30, there was those kind of players. And I know Sinnott hasn't turned out to be much yet, but I'm a big believer. Yeah. But the other guys, Tracy, Garendo, McMillan, and others, I wouldn't have found them without that tool because they probably didn't score much the week before. They probably might not have shown up if you sort by different ways. You could sort, points last week, ownership, whatever. But that tool was great. So let me get back to the question. So Tuesday is all about free agent building the global sheet, not putting in fab, but just getting the players in there. And of course, when you build that, you can put 20 or 30 players in. And it'll only show you by league which ones are actually available in your league when you start to toggle across your teams. So I use Tuesday, Wednesday to get that process tight and pick up who I need to pick up. Thursday's my trade day. I'm looking at, okay, I didn't get the waiver guys I needed, whatever. Thursday, I'm looking at what do I need to fill, where do I have strengths that I might be able to leverage, etc. Friday afternoon, now again, this is all done. I keep everything on Excel, one page. I'm doing all this off the FFPC. I'm doing it on Excel, because it's so much more efficient and I color code who's my starters, my backup players, my handcuffs.
For each league, you're doing this. For
each league. So I can look in one place and I can go across 30 tabs or 30 rows, and I can see, where do I have a player that I want to drop because he's someone I'd rather pick up someone off the waiver? Where do I have a gap? Maybe I've got a bye week where I need to pick up a kicker or defense, right? But I do it all on Excel. So by the time Friday or Saturday comes, I go in and I just set all my lineups. I don't think it's very efficient to just go into the app and just be like grinding over starting decisions from Wednesday to Saturday. I mean, there's so much that changes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in terms of player availability, health, all kinds of things. I want to wait till Friday or Saturday to make those decisions. I want to use that time Tuesday to Thursday to pick up the free agents and to make trades. And then Sunday morning, and the one last thing I'll say is I don't want to let the emotions get in the way. Sometimes I make bad decisions 5 minutes before games. So
There
I
you
try
go.
very hard to make decisions on Saturday. And unless there's a 10, like hour and a half before the game, someone's inactive, or someone like Ingram last year pulled a hamstring in warmups, I'm not changing the lineup. I've learned that my best decisions are on Saturday morning, not on Sunday before the game, when I start to get that anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Farrell,
so those are some of the things I do.
Jeff, this is all fantastic. This
It
is
is.
like all dynasty players are madly scribbling notes right now. Ferrell, you're going to ask him about the dynasty bench right now. Before you do that, Jeff, I want to ask you, when you talk about submitting your waivers Tuesday, Wednesday, getting your waivers lined up, you said Thursday is your trade day. What does that mean? Are you sending out offers? How do you handle Thursday, knowing that is the day after, waivers process? What does trade day on Thursday mean to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, after Wednesday night, you know who you got, who you didn't. So it's always exciting. I love 9:00 Central. It's locked. By 10:30, you might see who you got, who you didn't. It's so much fun to go through the leagues and see who you landed and who you didn't. But then at that point, I can put that in my spreadsheet, and I can see, if I have any gaps, or if I'm strong in a position where I think maybe I need to leverage that to, let's say, wide receiver to get a little deeper, running back, or whatever it may be. But I just take the time on Thursday to at least look across leagues and say, do I have something here that I want to at least, go out and reach out to the league and see if there's maybe a match. And what I typically do, instead of just sending out a global, hey, I want to make a trade, I'll go into the roster aspect of FFPC, and there's a tab where you can literally look at every roster on one view.
Right.
And I'll look for teams that are weak in an area that I'm strong. And then if they have something I need, then I'll reach out to them, send something that's what I'd call fair, and say, are you interested? The one thing I try very hard to do is not send offers that are not, I want every offer to be at least one that makes people think. I don't want it to be like, well, that's obviously not close. Hopefully I'm creating a conversation, and hopefully it's a conversation. May not land something that week, but maybe I start to engage that owner and I've got a better sense of what they're looking for, and maybe something lands down the line. But yes, I don't always make a trade on Thursday, but I want to take the time to see if there's something there. And if there's not something there, I'm not going to force it.
So it's the long-term aspect, right? Because a lot of times in my dynasty leagues, I'm like, hey, let's work this out. But after a week or two, it ends. But you are trying to establish some sort of, I don't want to say a relationship, but some sort of dialogue that, hey, maybe this deal didn't work out for both of us, but maybe now that we have a rapport, we can expand this conversation to other deals, or maybe a bigger deal that maybe doesn't hit, within the first couple of weeks of when you're discussing it.
Right.
Maybe it's a couple months down the road. Maybe it's next year, right? It's all about establishing a rapport with your league mates in Dynasty Fantasy Football, right, Jeff?
I would agree. And what I do so I don't lose that is, if I get a trade response, I keep a folder in my Yahoo email for each league, one for what I send out for offers, and one for anything I get back as a reply or any accepted deal in the league. So I know there's ways to look at that within the FFPC, but I also like to go to my own email, and I can see, okay, I've already sent that offer to that guy 3 months ago.
Right.
And then he responded and he said, hell no. So I'm probably not going to send that again, but I've got it there, so I can go back and refresh myself. And so, yeah, I think that's another thing I do a little different is, 30 leagues, that's 60 individual folders.
Yeah.
But that way, when I'm ready to go look at one league for one, trade, I'm not weeding through all kinds of information. I've got it kind of bucketed in a way I can get through it pretty quickly.
My question, and I believe you answered it. And I like the way you got the brands into the conversations. You may have a future in NIL yourself, but never. But the managing the end of your lineup, your spec guys,
right.
That's one of the things I'm always working with, and I'm probably spending a little bit too much time on those guys. But I think you just explained your system with that. Tom Smith asked about ridiculous trade offers. I think you handled that. You make sure that your trades are always going to get someone else, one of your co-owners' attentions. I'm more interested to get, unless you have anything else to say about the end of the bench, I'm real interested to balk you to keep moving on, because I want to get with the success you're having, I want to hurry up and talk about the rookie drafts, because how much are your teams going to change, and how often do you move rookie picks? And we'll get to that later, but that's where I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want to move on, we could certainly do that.
Yeah.
I will say, just on the bench, I just think we should be working all 20 positions. I do see rosters where it's like there's dead weight at the end, and I'm thinking, why? I mean, there's guys out there. I'm looking all the time and seeing the Garendos and other running backs or wide receivers. You can see a path for value, even if you don't need to start them. As we see with especially with Tracy and McMillan, I mean, guys that were free agents are now late first, early second round value. Even if you didn't need them, you'll love having that value to trade for something else, right? So I just don't see why we're having 3-4 quarterbacks on a team. Yeah, I was looking at one team in one of my leagues. They have Aaron Rodgers, Watson, Trevor
Lawrence.
What am I going blank?
The
guy in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So Trevor and Nix and Penix. So that's 5 spots. It's like, wow, man, there's got to be a better way, right? So anyway, I'm just a big believer. Let's not put like Lockett on the end of the bench or guys like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's got to be a better way to use that spot.
This is a great point, Jeff, because I happen to manage my redraft teams in a similar way. Those last 4 and 5 spots on your dynasty benches, it is all about upside for those players.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are not putting a guy wide. You mentioned Lockett. Lockett is a perfect example. A guy that's like wide receiver 50 something that has an upside of wide receiver 40 something, right? Yeah. Or running back that is a wide receiver 38, or excuse me, a running back 38, running back 37 that has the upside of running back 30. Like exactly. It is all about trying to get the upside, and you will churn through those guys. And when you cut them, and this is the other thing to keep in mind too, you cut them, and it's probably better for your team that you do, but then it's also forcing your league mates, your other 11 league mates, like, oh, should I be picking up this guy? Mm-hmm. And maybe they do, and then maybe they're cutting a guy that again has a running back that is like running back 60 or whatever, but he has the upside if he gets the opportunity of running back 25 or running back 15 or something like that. And then you can pick him up. It's all about keeping that churn going. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like every single week during the dynasty football season, you're always trying to find out who those upside guys are from week 1 to week 3 to week 7 to week 15. Like that is how you're operating your teams.
I would agree. I'm looking before I even go into the FFPC site to start picking up anybody for that week. I go across my 30 rosters and I say, do I even have a drop? I mean, right. I'm not going to drop someone if I don't have a drop, but I'll determine maybe 10 or 12 teams or someone that, I just don't see the upside or the value of that player. Then I'll still do the search across the 30 because I might find a McMillan or a Tracy in one of those leagues where I didn't have a drop. And then I have to go back and say, well, maybe I need to find a drop or make a trade or something because of course, hard when you don't have that player, you're just bidding on them. Mm-hmm. But the point is, I will sometimes have to rethink that if a waiver opportunity arises. To Ferrell's question about rookies, did you want to go to this kind of how I value the value of the picks and where I would consider the veterans?
You've had so many compelling things to say about dynasty fantasy football that I'll listen to anything you want to say about that.
Well, here's the thing. Let me set you up for this, Jeff, because I have had on people on.
He's going to tee it up for you. This is what Balky's really good at.
Yeah, I have had people on this show. I've had people on other shows. I've guested on other people's shows about how they're trying to really nail all aspects of fantasy football from a dynasty standpoint. The lineup submission. The blind bidding on waivers, and perhaps the most important thing, getting the picks right in your rookie draft. Because if you get the picks right in your rookie draft, that allows you for a cavalcade of a deep yawning chasm of being able to make mistakes in your other aspects of managing your dynasty leagues. But you have to get the players right in your rookie drafts. This is something that you have told me you struggled with in 2023, in 2024. You're trying to get right this year. Have you changed your approach And I know the combine's going on. We haven't seen the NFL draft yet. There's a lot that can happen. But how do you think you're going to modify, I guess is the best way to ask this, how do you think you're going to modify your approach to your rookie drafts this year as opposed to how you took them on this past year in 2024?
I appreciate the question. I did okay in the first round. I really sucked in the second through the seventh round. I think my hit rate was something like 8 out of 40 something.
Okay, let me stop you right there. The first thing, when you say that, the first thing I think of is, God, Jeff, everybody sucks after the first round. Like the hit rate goes way down after the first round. But for you still desire more. You still think you can be better. How can you be better?
Well, as an example, I think Bucky Irving's RAS score, relative athletic score, was something like a 2.2. Mm-hmm. Well, I just said, well, he's not a good athlete. That means he has to be lower on my list of running backs, right? Well, I didn't really catch the fact that he's about the most elusive running back and breaking tackles and everything else, right? So 3-cone drill might be better, although I don't even know if he did 3-cone. But I've started to hear more about 3-cone might be more indicative of even than RAS, or even for sure 40 times, right? But you look at like a Tyrone Tracy. I thought, well, I don't know. Not sure about him. He has good RAS score, but he's an older running back, right? So maybe I don't want to prioritize him because he's a little older than the other. So I pushed Tracy a little further down. Well, guess who the 2 best running backs were of the 24 class so far?
Tracy and Irving.
It was those two. And I had reasons to defer them, further down the line. So I'm looking at that and saying, well, I mean, RAS score is not completely irrelevant. I mean, there's some very good players like Brian Thomas, and I know A.D. Mitchell didn't have great stats, but there's some things that say that he actually was a lot better than what Richardson's passing allowed him to look. There's other guys with high RAS scores like Garendo that did well. So I'm not dismissing it, but I'm just not going to bump someone to the bottom of the pile just because of it. And so the other thing I'm doing is watching a little more video. I've tended to just follow people that do that, right? And then I just hear them out. Well, you know what? That got me only so far. Maybe I need to start doing a little bit more of the heavy lifting myself. So I would say those are a few of the things.
It's in your real estate business, you referred to what's that common curb appeal. Yeah. Property has curb appeal. You look at it, it looks really good. We talk about college football. Do we have time to watch it? Do we have time to consume it? I think one of the shortcuts you can make is to try to look at a prolific college player and say, who is the NFL player that this guy reminds me of? That's one of the greatest shortcuts that scouts make in trying to explain why they're connected to a player. And we have an unusual running back this year out of Boise State that people will talk about how it reminds them of Marshawn Lynch, and they'll actually throw in Barry Sanders sometimes. Guys with great contact balance, which is my favorite thing to look at in a running back. I think the thing that should be scary to everyone else that's in the dynasty world in your divisions is you're just going to continually get better. And so you say you've hit on the number one very, very well. And so it's kind of a couple of my disappointing teams have very high draft picks. So I get a number of offers to acquire my number one draft picks. And it's oftentimes from the league winner. He wants to give me a variety of things to get that number one draft pick. So you've won a lot of leagues. How often are you going out to aggressively try to acquire that number one draft pick and go pick you that running back from Boise State?
Yeah, I'd say in the few years I've been doing Dynasty, I haven't really made much of an effort to go after 101 because the cost was very prohibitive. I'm making an exception to that this year because I think Genty is worth it. So let me tell you a trade I just made, and I think you may say overpaid, but I'm comfortable with it. Okay, so I traded 1.06 and the 2026 second for 101. Actually, let me get one more player in there. I traded the 106, the Benson and Tyreek Hill. That's what I traded for 101 and a 2026 second.
I listen, I'm totally on board with that. So here's the thing. And this is a guy who is a spurned guy when it comes to Trey Benson in 2024, because I drafted him based on, hey, James Conner's not going to stay healthy. There's a very, very real possibility that Conner stays healthy again for the majority of the season. And even if he doesn't, we don't know how good Trey Benson's going to be. Right. Tyreek Hill has his best football behind him.
Correct.
And he could still be very good. But I think as I look towards drafting teams or whatever, I feel like Mike McDaniel is trying to keep Tua Tagovailoa upright, and that means more Jonnu Smith. It means more Devon Achane, and it means less Tyreek Hill, who had surgery not only on his knee last year, as we found out when he was being arrested by Miami police, but we found out his wrist. He had surgery on as well. So, and again, best football behind him. Ashton Genty, I have gone to the extremes, not the extremes, but I've gone to the avenue of when I ask people on my shows about Ashton Genty, it's not, hey, how is this guy good? How is this guy going to matter? I have, and this is maybe overestimating how good he's going to be. But my questions, Jeff, on Ashton Genty is, hey, how is this guy going to be a bust? If I tell you that this guy does not live up to his draft capital in Dynasty or in redraft, why is that? So I'm looking for reasons that Ashton Genty is going to be a bust. And based on what people are saying in the FFPC, I'm looking at the Big Gorilla tournament right now. As far as where his ADP is, he's being drafted as a rookie as running back 7 at the 206. He is going ahead of Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs. He's going ahead of all these guys. He is right in the same plane of Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, and, last year's number 1 overall pick in Christian McCaffrey. So I think with Genty, again, you don't want to get too hyperbolic with these picks in Dynasty, but my God, this guy might be an exception this year. That's how I'm reading it, and it seems like that's how you're reading it as well.
Well, I had one other 101. So with the number of teams I have, I at least want to have multiple,
Sure.
2, 3, 4. Yeah. So I felt like, in my mind, I at least paid fair value, maybe slightly above that. I'm okay with that. If that's what it took, because I think Benson is a question. I certainly feel like everything you said about Tyreek Hill is true. I mean, Jonnu Smith is someone I would be very interested in, definitely more so than Tyreek. And that's actually one of the guys, I don't know if you guys want to go to that, but real quick, I'll just say one of my big misses in the rookie draft, I didn't even consider the veterans. I really didn't. Mayfield was available. I mean, it's not in every league, but across my leagues, there was Mayfield examples. There was Tucker Kraft. There were examples of Jonnu being available. And
Zach Ertz was available everywhere.
Who's that?
Zach Ertz was available.
Zach Ertz was exactly. I mean, so these are guys that I didn't even give consideration to. So as far as like what I'm going to do different this year, certainly around round 4 on, I want those guys in my consideration mix. Yeah, I still am looking for upside, but you know what? Jonnu Smith and Ertz were upside. They don't have to be young to be upside.
Right. Farrell, I know you want to ask the last question. Before we do that, I want to get to some YouTube questions that have popped up for Jeff right now. Tom on YouTube, our good buddy Tom Smith, do the so-called, in quotes, bad trade offers you Dynasty players ever get annoying? And I guess like I can just speak to my own truth on this, Jeff. Yeah, they do get annoying. Do I respond to everyone? As much as I can, because I don't want to alienate any offers. Right. But yes, after a while, they do get frustrating. And maybe that's on me for the endowment effect, overrating my players, in comparison to how the rest of the league rates them. But I still respond. I still want to keep a rapport. I don't want to tick off any of the owners in my league because I never know when I'm gonna seal the deal on a trade that really helps me out.
When I get those offers, I mean, would you be ticked off if I were to respond, reject it, and respond? How close do you live to the dispensary? You know,
But okay, let me bring this up. Let
yeah.
me bring this up. And he may be watching tonight. I don't know. But I went out and I offered, before the start of the 2024 season, I offered Alvin Kamara up in all the dynasty leagues I had. And I was trying to get a first-round pick. Now, for anybody who had the 101, the 102, the 103, whatever, I wasn't offering him to them. But for people who had a mid-first round, a late first round, yeah, that was where I was going to start the bidding. And one guy rejected me, and he just said, like, his response was, LOL, which is fine.
Yeah.
Jeff, I would actually prefer a response like that than no response at all. How do you feel about these dynasty trades when you get the bad ones in, or perhaps you know, like how you react when somebody sends you a rejection and they obviously don't value your players the same way you do?
Yeah, I definitely almost always will say thanks for the offer, no matter what the offer, because I feel like there's no downside to that. It shows some respect. It shows some appreciation that someone took the time to even reach out. Generally, if it's a bad offer, I'm not going to call that out unless they just keep doing it. And at some point, I might say, you know, we're not close. You know, this player's not of interest or whatever. I'm not looking to let this player go, whatever it may be. But I'm a big believer in, you know, putting comments in and then thanking people that put comments in. So like sometimes I'll respond and say, I'm not going to take your offer. Here's what I'm thinking. And I'll get back. I might just chat them because maybe I'm not going to counter the offer, but I might just send a chat and say, you know, your comments are very appreciated, and I understand your position, and all the best, you know, something like that, just to let them know that I may not be willing to do what they want to do, but I appreciate the direction and the clarity of what it would take.
I like that. You know, and if you ever come to Kentucky to play, Jeff, we'll have the Mr. Congeniality Trophy waiting for you. You'll be able to award that to you upon. But there's something to be said about that, and I appreciate that. And I think what Tom might be saying is that sometimes you get such lopsided offers that you say, oh, did I miss this in the news? I got to go check. Yeah. Maybe this guy fell off a mountain today, or, you know, maybe he announced, you know, that might be the aspect. Okay, Balky, we got any more emails? What about emails?
No emails.
This
the only thing I'll bring up, and Toyo is
Toyo's got a really good question.
So Toyo, and I'm not sure if this is Zach Toyo, our champion of the playoff challenge in 2023, 2024, and the best ball tournament as well. But he says he is a Travion Henderson bull. Okay, landing spot. Let's take that out of the equation here. Where do you have Travion Henderson relative to Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, Caleb Johnson from Iowa? How much have you, and maybe you haven't invested a whole lot of thought into these guys, which is totally fine because we're still in the final day of February. Like, we got a ways to go before these guys are on NFL teams. Where do you land on Toyo's question here?
Well, part of my, you know, improving my process is I am starting to look sooner. And I have been watching and reading up and such, and I'm a huge Travion fan. So I go back and forth between Travion and Omarion Hampton in terms of 2 and 3, but they're my clear 2 and 3. To me, there's a delta between Genty and then of course these two, but to me these two are the clear next two. But I don't know if you guys have seen, you probably have, but if you've seen any of his pass protection, Travion Henderson's pass blocking, he has some. I don't know if you guys remember the MJD blowing up Sean Merriman years ago.
Yeah.
He literally knocked him off his feet. Travion Henderson has some of that. So people look at Travion, and he's probably, let's call him maybe the second or third lightest running back in the top 10. But he's a 3-down back. I mean, this guy can pass protect and explosive. There's no question about it. Pass receiving, no question. If you can block and pass protect and catch, and you're explosive, I'll take that. So I don't know which of those two I'd go with right now, but they're 2 and 3, and it's not really close to 4 and 5 for me.
I think you gave us a little tease on this in your thought process. So we can't use Tyreek Hill, but give me a player that you're ready to get this player off your roster. He may still have some tread on the tire, but he's not who you want on your dynasty roster. And then give us one that you'll be trying to acquire either through trade, through draft, or just through blind luck.
I'm done with Deebo Samuel. I mean, if he can't succeed if he's asking out of San Francisco, which would be the best place for him to be successful, and he didn't have a very good year last year, I don't see it getting any better. But as far as a guy I'd like to pick up, Ben Sinnott. I think it's interesting if people don't remember, Ben Sinnott had the 6th fastest 3-cone time of any position last year. Mm-hmm. He's an athlete. He also caught that pass that was the fake punt in the playoff game against Philadelphia. They trust him. I mean, Ertz has been healthy and he's earned the right to be the first guy. But let's remember 2 years before, he was leading the way over in Arizona, got hurt, and then Trey McBride came in and never looked back, right? So I don't know if Ertz is even coming back to Washington this year. He's a free agent. I think they'd like to have him back. I think he probably wants $10+ million, and they may or may not be willing to spend that. They do have the cap space to do it. But if he comes back and gets hurt, Sinnett's going to take that job and run away with it. If he doesn't come back, Sinnett's going to take that job and run away with it. At some point, Sinnett's going to be somebody you want on your team. Mm-hmm. And now, now's the time to get him. You might get him for a 3rd right now, maybe a late 2nd. I don't know. But I want him everywhere I can get him, and I'll take him on every team. If I can get him on 30 teams, I'll have him on all 30.
I like that. I like that. I have a similar and he's not the kind of athlete, but I love him as a tight end, and that's the backup tight end with the Raiders, Meyer, who's now entering into some trade talks or some new landing spot talks, and it just there's a lot. Don't give up on your guys that let you down a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, Sinnott only had 5 catches, but I'm still a believer.
Well, we talked him up strong too.
We did. Absolutely. Jeff, let me throw this at you as far as long as we're talking about backup tight ends. Evan Engram could be cut in Jacksonville. And if the Jaguars don't address that position in the draft, you would think Brenton Strange would be the starter there, a guy who has achieved some pretty good weeks when Evan Engram was out last year. Knowing the short benches in FFPC Dynasty Leagues and knowing that every spot is at a premium, how do you fall in on Brenton Strange as far as leagues that you don't have him on in acquiring him, or leagues that you do have him on, and whether he makes the cut when you have to cut down in the FFPC?
Yeah, that's the issue. Getting to 16 by March 31st, I don't think I could keep him on a roster, most likely, given the players I have on my teams. But he'd be the kind of guy around 4, 5, 6, 7 in the rookie draft that I'd like to see if he's out there. I'd probably want to grab him back on some teams. Right. I picked him up last year, and there were a couple of weeks he was really good. And then right when I started to believe, he just went dark. I mean, there were games where he didn't have a catch. I mean, so I kind of had a mixed bag experience with him this year. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he a 2nd-round pick?
I'm going to look that up right now. I think he was day 2. I don't know if he was 2nd round, but I'm going to look it up.
He's a pretty high draft choice. And I don't know a lot about the guy, but I remember when what do you have, a 10 or a 12 catch game, and really got my attention.
I was wrong. He was a 2nd-round pick. He was the 61st pick of the 2023 NFL draft out of, believe it or not, Penn State, which is becoming tight end U, basically.
Yeah. No, that. I think he's definitely someone I want to grab some shares for sure.
Okay. Listen, I would love to go another hour. Ferrell would love to go another hour. We just don't have the time. And my wife is calling me right now because I got a daughter having a sleepover right now, and I guarantee you it's like, hey, why are you not off the air yet? You need to put our daughter to sleep. Here's the thing, Jeff, this was awesome tonight. You have been a guy who has not only achieved a dozen plus championships in the FFPC, but a lot of them in the dynasty standpoint. If anybody wanted to pick your brain, are you on Twitter, X? Are you is there any way for people to reach you?
Absolutely. I'm not very active on it, but I'd be happy to engage anyone that would want to reach out. I'm at Jeff Newton 14 on X.
Okay, Jeff Newton 14. I'm going to post that here. I'm going to make sure that we're following you, and make sure that anybody who has a dynasty fantasy football or just a general fantasy football question, they can reach out and ask you as well.
We'd be happy to help. I just love the engagement, and that's what makes it great. So if I can be of help, I'd be happy to do it.
For sure. Jeff, I wish you nothing but best of luck in 2025. Enjoy those rookie drafts. I know you have adjusted how you're handling them this coming year. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck in doing that in 2025. And don't be a stranger. Hopefully we'll get to do another show with you again very, very soon. This was so much fun tonight. Ferrell, wouldn't you agree? This was awesome.
Man, I tell you what, that's what you get out of it. You know, St. Louis needs a football team because you got football fans in St. Louis like Jeff Newton.
And not just the Battlehawks. We need an NFL team there.
We support the Battlehawks well.
Have you been to a Battlehawks game, Jeff?
I have not, but I would love to get down there. The fans are pretty into it. But I will say I was I really enjoyed the Greatest Show on Turf Days. I wish they had left us, but we had a good experience for a bit of time there.
How sweet it was! You got good football people in St. Louis still, but none better than Jeff Newton. You're a wonderful addition to the FFPC.
The 23-time FFPC League champion, Jeff Newton, joining us tonight. Jeff, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend, dude. We'll talk again soon.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. See you guys.
That is Jeff Newton, ladies and gentlemen, joining the show tonight. Ferrell, I know we started late tonight, but we've gone way over because Jeff was so awesome.
And Balky, I'm like a walking, zombie right now, sitting here. And I got a feeling that he's up every morning at 4 a.m. getting prepared for fantasy, for getting some things organized. That's the kind of guy you're competing with.
What time did you get back from the combine today?
I got home right a little bit after sundown. I was up on my feet working by 6 a.m. and our NFLPA meeting concluded at 5 p.m. and a guy asked me, "What time are you leaving?" I said 5:01, and I got to I got out of town like it was like a tornado was coming, baby.
One of the local grocery stores here in the Fox Valley in Northeast Wisconsin, where I live, has started carrying the St. Elmo's cocktail sauce.
Well, you don't want it. It's too damn,
No. Here's the
unless
thing.
you're all stuffed up,
okay. Here's the thing. It did clear my sinuses.
Yeah.
But I did get it, and I said, you know what? I'm not in Indy this week, but I'm gonna live like all the agents, all the media, all the players, all the team representatives, and so I had my shrimp cocktail this week, and let me tell you, I'm good till next year.
It's a tradition.
It is a tradition. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, man. We will do this again 1 week from today. Get some rest.
I'll do it. That's what Mr. Greer says. He has banished me to. I'm gonna go watch some. I'm gonna go watch some combine. Okay.
It's what you do. So don't get some rest. Churn out some work. You'll rest when you're dead. That is what I always say. That is what you believe. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk with you next Friday.
See you next week, man.
You got it. That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, hanging out on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Wow, what a show. We will get to your emails and tweets. We're way over time tonight, and I want to make sure everybody has a chance to listen to this. I want to thank Jeff Newton for coming on tonight. I want to thank Ferrell Elliott for co-hosting. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time with 12-time FFPC Dynasty champion Bill Rahor is going to join us for his thoughts on not only the rookie drafts, but how he's handling his veterans and trying to prep his teams for fantasy dominance in 2025. In case you missed it, last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, presented by the FFPC, was a fun one. RotoViz's Sean Siegel joined me for 2 full hours. We touched on some veteran stuff, but the majority of the show was what Sean thinks about rookies, what he thinks about running backs, receivers, tight ends. Check out rotoviz.com. The RotoViz rookie draft guide is out right now. Sean has wrote up, well over 80 player profiles there, and you can check that out, rotoviz.com. He gave us a taste last night and was really enjoyable. Again, you can watch that on any of the FFPC socials or the Better Sports Network or the BSN socials as well. Check out the Never Too Early Superflex and Never Too Early Classic Best Ball tournaments going on at myffpc.com. $40,000 and $10,000 grand prizes are up for grabs there. Drafts are available 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks right now at myffpc.com. While you're there, pick up a Dynasty Orphan team. Many of those Dynasty Orphans have had their team entry fees lowered for 2025. They are normally between $77 and $5,000. Some of them are as low as $1 right now. myffpc.com. 1,800 plus leagues over the last decade and a half, and none of those leagues have ever folded. Check them out, myffpc.com. And of course, the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament is off and running. Capture the Gorilla. Take advantage of these early ADP values that you can get in the Big Gorilla. $1 million grand prize, $1 million, $1 million to borrow Dr. Evil's line. The entry fee just $350. You can get 3 teams for $1,000. Drafts are already running both live and slow right now at myffpc.com. Check it out. You can get in the early Rampage tournament and the Big Gorilla tournament. So it's basically 2 tournaments for the price of one. myffpc.com has the details, and find out how you can win a safari, a jungle safari for 4 if you get that 7 pick in the Big Gorilla 5 times in a row. myffpc.com for the details there. That is where to go. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Brand new RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown coming up at 10 p.m. this coming Tuesday. That is the next time this channel goes live. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the NFL Combine. A lot of stuff to unpack with the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends over the next 48 hours. For Ferrell Elliott, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the FFPC YouTube and social channels. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Just want to remind you, too, that not that we're necessarily in the thick of drafting season, but 2 separate Never Too Early tournaments and the Big Gorilla going on right now, as well as all those Dynasty Orphans. Theo Greminger from Player Profiler pointed this out. We're in peak Dynasty season. I don't know if we're in peak Dynasty season right now, but it's very, very close if we're not. If you do have the inkling and want to dip your toes in the Dynasty, I think you heard a great message from Jeff Newton tonight about how he dipped his toes in and has been very successful at it. And success is great, whatever. But I think the biggest thing for me and the way I've always played my fantasy leagues for Dynasty, just have fun with it. This is a great way to have fun with Dynasty Fantasy Football here in late February, early March. Try it out. And if you've already tried it out and it's not for you, I totally get it. But if you've never tried it out, you don't know if it's for you or not. It might just be for you. Pick up a Dynasty Orphan team for as little as $1 over at myffpc.com. And you can come on the show and tell me how awesome it was later on. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the Combine. We'll talk with you again next week. Be good, everybody.